Looks like we're pretty much all here for the aquaculture working group meeting except for Chris McIntyre, Matt Gilly, and Kevin, who will be hopefully joining us shortly. Is there any public comment from the audience? Hey.
Hi, Max Verdes. Do I need should I go on to a mic?
Probably, yeah, just so it's official. Yeah.
Are these
Come on
all
up.
supposed to be on?
I think so.
I was just talking to Matt earlier, Matt Gilly. This is Max Verdes, and I was hoping to speak with any pogie fishermen about a proposed aquaculture lease, but since he's not here, maybe I'll come next meeting, unless there's any other pogie guys. But if not, never mind.
Maybe hang around, see.
Yeah, I'll see if someone else shows up.
Okay. Okay, anybody else? Any work group member announcements?
Can we accept the minutes?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they should put that on there. Did you guys have a chance to look through the minutes from last meeting? Anybody have any issues?
I did correct a name spelling.
I saw that. That's an
Yeah.
important one, too.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's been corrected and is sent to Tina.
Yep. Yes. Am I too quiet? Okay. I'll try better. Is that better?
We can hear you up here, but
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion about the minutes? David?
Second.
Second, and all in favor? Okay, unanimous, great. The agenda is pretty simple. We wanted to touch back on the mapping project. It's kind of time to wrap that up, I think, and figure out when's the last point in time where we're going to add any more stuff to it. Have you guys heard any feedback from other people wanting to add or having any issues with it? Are we kind of ready to put this draft into the process? Okay. I guess, Paul, do you know what we need to do next? Do we just need to get the language updated on the classifications map to pony this onto it? Is that what's next?
Yeah, so I amended the agenda because it was kind of out of order, so I apologize, but are you guys able to see my screen?
Yeah. Your time, oh, yeah, yeah. The big,
Okay. So the way this works is the waters classification map needs to be approved by town voters. The definitions themselves are actually approved by the Board of Selectmen. So for us to have something on the June warrant, the administration needs something by April 8th, which doesn't leave us a whole lot of time.
okay.
And of course, with that, even though the selectmen do the definitions or can approve the definitions, the administration feels that they would like the language to go with the map so that the voters know kind of what they're voting on, all in one package.
Yeah, that seems fair.
Um,
So do we need to
Yeah, so
co,
the timeline's pretty short. You guys might have to meet again prior because I believe you guys meet on the 9th. So of course, it needs to be due on the 8th. So you might need to meet one more time to finalize any ideas you have to change or draft anything up.
okay. Do you guys want to try and meet like the week prior? Is that too soon to figure this out, or are we all good with that? The week prior, like this, that would be April 2nd, Wednesday, April 2nd. Right. Same time. Is there any conflict in the room as far as you know, Paul?
I will double check and I will get back to you guys.
Okay, we'll tentatively plan for April 2nd at 3:30 right here then to wrap this up.
Okay.
And then that being said, do you want us to kind of go through and start hammering out any language changes right now? Or is that something for us to work on at the next meeting? What's your vision for that?
I think if you guys have already played, like if you ran these scenarios through your head and you've kind of read through them and you have some ideas, it wouldn't hurt to start talking about them now and get them out there.
Okay, did you guys all get a copy of the definitions from Paul, or am I the only one that has that?
I feel like I did.
It's like
Actually,
homework.
we didn't want that.
There we go.
Oh, it's in our packet.
Oh, you're so good, Paul.
Oh.
Look at that. I cheated and I have an electric version on my laptop, so if we would like to actually make some changes, I can kind of type them in as edits, and maybe we can get a bunch of this done right now. Do you guys want a couple minutes to skim through there before we start yakking?
I guess the other thing to think about is are we just blending what's already there with the fisheries map, or are we kind of re-establishing what type 1, 2, 3, and 4 are based on what the fisheries information says? Just something to think about.
I mean, it kind of fits with type 4 with the commercial fishing, but I mean, it's not necessarily harbors, it's the entire coastline, so.
So should we write coastline?
Yeah, I think we could just use type 4 waters and change the heading to commercial and recreational waters instead of harbors, and that way.
Well, multi-purpose waters are really through that one.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, you're right, that's a little bit better. But it feels like a light name for it, like I don't. And what does,
We also need to look at this map too, to make sure, I can't see it on here necessarily.
yeah,
Oh, there it is. Is blue type 2, Paul?
Blue is type 2, yeah.
And that red color is type 1?
Type 1, yeah.
So we might want to change some of the type 1 to type 2. If we look at this map and then side by side with your map that we've done, and look at them and say, do these make sense?
I think so.
Do we need to change?
I mean, I think there's gonna end up being almost no type 1 waters when you lay over the fishing activity.
Right. We just may want to,
Yeah, I'd combine 1 and 2.
like, look at them,
Yeah.
or overlay it and see where the issues are.
Paul, are we allowed to modify that map, the current marine use map that you guys have there? Or we're not shifting those boundaries?
Yeah, the purpose is to update it anyways, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
The idea is to take what we did for mapping, this thing, and the definitions, and try to make one place for people to go look at.
Yeah.
So we're gonna make a request to get both charts side by side, so we can decide on type 1, type 2. Because like you said, I mean, once we do the overlap, majority of this will be 2 anyways.
Yeah, in fact, I didn't make a full version of that. That doesn't exist in GIS, but I scanned it in and I kind of started doing that with Paul. I didn't finish breaking it all into the current boundaries, so I could do that and have that prepared for our April 2nd meeting. I just don't want us too close to the wire to wrap things up, but it seems like we need time to look at both things together and make sure we're not missing anything, because it's kind of important, so. Do we want to maybe talk about at least the definitions and then deal with merging the maps at the next meeting? Does that sound like it might make sense?
Can I ask Paul a question about the map?
Yeah.
On, sorry, my voice. On the neck, you can see the west side of the neck is all blue, and the east side is all red. That doesn't necessarily make sense to me. Because there's lots of places on the east side that have harbors and moorings and fishing, and almost at times more than the west side, but I'm not sure why there's such a discrepancy between those two.
Just to be clear, I didn't make the map.
No, 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 I know, but if I look at
You're
that,
right.
that doesn't make any sense to me
Yeah.
whatsoever.
right?
I was involved in making this map.
I think once we overlay all the fishing territories, I think it's gonna cover most of that stuff, and then it'll end up being the high-intensity boating and the harbors will just kind of lay on top of the commercial fishing stuff that we've got. So I don't know that we are gonna need a type 1 necessarily, or it would be those little
Well,
tiny gaps in
well,
between.
I think we do need a type 1. I'm just saying, that map is not,
Correct,
it's not accurate.
yeah.
Yeah, no.
It definitely needs to be updated. I think we need to understand these type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4 more. I mean, Paul, your type 1 would be an example of what? Like an island offshore?
Yeah, for the longest time, it was kind of like upper middle bay where the lobstering kind of wasn't as thick. That's like a kind of a prime example of but that is heavily pogey area, but, you're just gonna have conflicts everywhere, so it's hard to say what exactly something is going to be, especially now that we have this map.
So more of a lower intensity fishing, more of a recreational area.
Brett from Peanut Gallery.
Go for it.
Okay. I'm familiar with this map from the Coastal Waters Management Plan, but I've made it elsewhere. So that was 2011. Hi, Paul. I know that map from the Coastal Waters Management Plan, a report. Does it predate that report? Was it created for that report by CES, or where does this map come from?
It was created by CES in 2011.
Okay, so for that report, yeah. Just curious,
Yeah.
because it hasn't been updated since then, Paul?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Just wondering about the origin.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is gonna be changing some of the type 1 to type 2. And do we wanna change the definitions of type 1 and type 2, or add another type?
Well, if we wanted to designate the work that we did on the commercial fishing areas map as heavily used commercial fishing area, that seems like it's its own category, like type 5, if you want to call it that. And then you can peel any reference to fishing out of all these other ones and just use these for marinas or moorings or the other uses. And that kind of keeps it from getting all muddied up with trying to squish it into the other ones that are here.
I mean, on the website, you're gonna be offering a clear map of its own type of fishery, correct? Like, show like 5, then the 6, and then if you want, overlay them all.
Yeah, that's the goal, I think, is to
Yeah.
have everything there that people might want to be looking at, so.
I mean, type 5 might be the dominant,
Yeah,
fishing, type, I guess.
Define, type 5 should be defined fisheries. Yeah,
legacy fisheries in town.
yeah,
Say that again, Darcy?
Type 5 might be legacy fisheries.
yeah, commercial fisheries.
And that way, that captures pretty much all of the fishing stuff. And then we can take that language out of references and the other types, and then kind of, once that gets stripped back, then let's look at these types without any reference to fishing and see if that makes sense. If any of these can be combined, or if they're kind of still standalone stuff. I mean, harbors are harbors, so that seems like it should stay where it is. Mooring fields.
Hey, Paul, what would be the difference between type 3 and type 4? They're in town.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul.
I hear you now, I'm just looking.
Yeah.
Oh,
Use and access.
I mean, do we need type 3 and type 4?
They look similar to me if you're removing fishing from stuff.
3 and 4 are close, it's just, I think, what I gather is like the really tight harbors, so Potts Harbor, Basin, Backward Cove, Cundies, those are like straight up off limits for any other use other than just commercial fishing or riparian owners who live in the area.
And that's type 4?
Yeah,
Is that the green or is that the blue? No,
the purple.
Purple.
type 4 is
purple, gotcha.
Yeah.
And, you know, another example of what type 3, the lime green, it looks like Lookout Point, where it's, yeah, there's a lot of commercial fishing, but there's also a lot of recreation happening with the landing being so close by. So it's kind of that mixed use.
Guess that's all right.
Well, do you want to consider then merging type 1 and 2? Because a lot of those low-intensity use areas are around islands, which we've already documented now are freighted with fishing activity. So I don't know that there's any true type 1 stuff out there. If it could just be comboed with multi-purpose waters, I don't know. Is that too extreme to do that? I just think we have to be careful because if we're calling it low-intensity use areas here, but then the fishing map shows that that's full of, scallop, dragon, lobster gear, and pokey toes, then it's confusing. How are people supposed to interpret that?
Well, it does say that it's providing commercial service and fishing activities, correct, in type 1? And I think majority, like 90% of that is tidal flats, correct?
A lot of it is, yeah.
Yeah. Don't know.
I mean, it almost make more sense to make everything type 2 and
Yeah.
type 5 and then really try to identify what type 1 means. I mean, I don't really know what it means. Where nothing's going on, there's not many places in town where there's nothing going on.
Right.
Especially if you look at our fisheries map.
Yeah.
But maybe we should pull that thing up and see. But it's almost like you need to do both at the same time. Like fishing is not really, oh yeah, valuable to commercial fishing activities, it does say that.
I think that's the only reason why it says it, because a large portion of that is tidal. So there is a type of commercial fishing activity taking place there, even though it's low density.
Hey, Paul? Did we add aquaculture into that type 1 recently? Is that,
Aquaculture was always in type 1. Type 2 was where the committee added aquaculture
Okay.
as a could be considered.
and that was last year we made that change?
Oh, no, that was a few years now.
Yeah, but I remember that. So on type 2, we added aquaculture areas,
For multi-purpose water,
yeah, for type 2.
that makes sense.
Did you quit us?
Matt?
I have to until Thursday.
Fair enough.
I'm a member of the public.
Yeah. Congrats.
So, Paul, aquaculture was added, but it's not listed?
Yeah, it is, right?
It's under type 2.
Oh, okay, gotcha, thank you.
Yeah.
So it's official. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's used on both 1 and 2. Very end of 1.
I mean, it seems to me type 1 would be like way up in the bay, like way, way, way up there.
Yeah.
Not many
I'm afraid-
houses, not many docks, not many moorings, not many boats. And
Yeah.
everything else should be type 2 and type 5 if we're doing that as well, but.
You could eliminate the type 1, but eliminating that definition may not go good with some riparian homeowners that live up quiet, wild,
Yeah.
don't ever see anything.
But aquaculture is listed on type 1, so it doesn't mean it can't happen, it's just.
No. Just, why can't you just leave them be and just add number 5?
I mean, we could do that.
But number 5 is going to displace a lot of it.
Yeah.
And that's going to leave out, it's not just fishing, we're going to make sure we, list all these things that can happen, aquaculture, recreational fishing, docks, marina, whatever.
So I would add aquaculture into low intensity.
It is there.
It's in both places, 1 and 2.
It was always in 1 and just we added it to 2.
Yeah.
We've covered it, really.
I mean, we may just want to
Just add
add,
type 5 or call it some overarching description to,
or just add legacy fisheries to type 1, type 2. Add that to the description of both type 1 and type 2.
Yeah.
Or say, legacy fisheries map, or I guess it'll only be 1 map.
yeah, Paul, do we see, like, is it just gonna be like, it's just gonna be 1 map, like all of our stuff that we did, and then these little edges are gonna get overlaid on top of that as well, like that's kind of the goal then, right, for
So
everyone?
the goal will be so that there's something in the vault, in the record, it'll be 1 map with
Yep.
everything on it. It's gonna be completely jumbled, but
Shit show.
the actual GIS will be the living document.
Okay,
So
all right. I
that will be
mean,
approved, it cannot be edited until town vote approves it again next time. So yes, people will be able to click on and off the layers, but what's going in the vault as a record will be a completely, everything on there.
On, like, type 1, why couldn't you just simply, support fish, wildlife, habitat, which is, instead of valuable, which just supports commercial fishing activities? I think that you could correct that, because it's not happening everywhere, but it is happening. Because I mean, I don't see it other than, like he says, way up in the head of the bay or the head of a cove.
right.
Other than that,
I mean, you could still have it its own header as just not even a type, just say legacy fishing waters and have it underlay everything.
yep.
That way we don't have to go wordsmithing too much. People aren't going to get confused. The point is we want them to understand that it's there, so they have to be taking note of it when they're coming here, but that's, I don't know if you want to add, we could add some language in these types, but it seems like legacy fishing waters would be its own little standalone section and kind of lay underneath everything. It cuts across all of them, really. Can we do that? Are we allowed to make something like that work, or?
Yeah, I would say from staff standpoint, when we're reviewing these, talking to the applicant, I think the type 5 makes sense, because then we can say, we apply it first, whatever, type 1, 2, or 3, and then 5 is just a blanket, and we'll say, if it falls in type 5, it needs even further examination.
Yeah.
Maybe that's connecting with, this group, if it becomes a full committee, or the harbor waterfront committees.
So should we come up with a definition for legacy fishery areas? Jerry, you're good with words.
I was already at the State House, I'm worried about.
I think we should probably write down what that means.
Active fisheries, commercial fisheries, active commercial.
Do you want to list all the fisheries that can happen there, like they're listed on the map, so people actually know?
I think that's a decent idea. Then it also gives them a good idea, like there's a lot going on here.
Historical legacy fisheries areas that include all things will be mapped,
Yep.
Yeah.
plus
So-
aquaculture.
just list the legacy fishing type 5, and then just put the underlining of what we put onto the map, and then just add legacy fishing into each of the types. So that way it's,
We may want to say that that type 5 gets updated every year, or we try to update it every year or something. I mean, I know we talk about that, but this committee is going to do that possibly, try to make sure it's accurate. It's not like we just do a map in 2011 and never look at it again. It's like,
yeah. Is that language we're gonna adopt into this as well, about having to redo these maps, or at least having a window of when we do these maps? Because maybe somebody looks at it in 2026, but then they winter bird, and they come back. By then, everything's changed, and they're not aware of the change.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we would need to pick our refresh date for that. Maybe try and line it up so that it makes sense to do the changes and have it ready in a decent amount of time for the next town meeting, whatever those dates look like. All right. Hang on, I'm typing some stuff here.
Did we do a lot of the recreational fishing outlines on the mapping? Did we end up with participants putting in the map on the recreational side?
Not a lot. We had some charter, I think charter captain maybe or two. What do you guys think about type 1 and type 2 on the map? What does staff think about that, Paul? Type 1 and type 2 on the map?
I see both sides. When the recommendation was made to eliminate one and kind of call it 2 and maybe revamp the wording, I think, we can get on board with that. But I also see the other side with, I think David mentioned, there's going to be folks who aren't going to be happy with that. They've mentioned and they've told staff and the administration that they enjoy living in type 1 areas and kind of pride themselves on that.
It also might help eliminate too much confusion and suspicion if we don't change too many things that are already there that people are comfortable with, that they're familiar with, and if we just add on the new thing. I have tentatively typed up here for type 5 waters as legacy fishing waters. These areas are heavily used by one or more fisheries, including lobster, scallop, pogie, sanders, European oyster harvest, and clam harvest. Does that make sense? Kind of covers it.
Can you say it again?
Legacy fishing waters. These areas are heavily used by one or more fisheries, including lobster, scallop, pogie, sanders, European oyster harvest, and clam harvest.
One more time. Lobster, scallop.
Yep. Pogies, European oyster, clam harvest. I didn't put rockweed on there, but we can. We technically have it on the map.
So looking at the map, Sam, where you guys keep your boats, is type 1. And Widgeon Cove, right up in there, is type 1 as well. Widgeon Cove seems more like a type 1 in a fishing area. There's moorings and stuff all along that shore, seems like type 2 to me.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Billy. I think if now's the time to revamp the color of the map, we should also be thinking about that.
Okay.
I mean, if we just went along the shoreline, or if you look at just the moorings, if we took the moorings that you have, that kind of tells the story. If you overlaid the mooring layouts on this current map, which you probably can't, but
Yeah, that's tricky. This one's not a GIS
Yeah.
layer, so it's just literally a piece of paper.
but you can't tell me from Stover's Cove all the way up that entire neck is type 1. Just, that doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah.
These are outdated maps too.
But I think
Yeah.
if we're gonna do the mapping, we should probably
Do you guys
I almost think
want
that type 1 is almost like flats, you know? Like
Yeah.
places where the water drains out and there's,
The very head of a
you know,
handful of coves throughout town,
yeah.
I could easily tell you
Oh.
which ones just wanna be left alone and make a,
We have a
Point of
comment
it.
from the peanut.
I mean, if you,
someone want to recognize this member of the audience?
I think we should look at, is there a way, Paul, that we can, with GIS, kind of figure out how many areas are, saying 500 square feet in an area, you know, and then base, like if we have, say, set a set number of moorings, if there's 20 moorings in 500 square feet, determine that's a type 2 use. If there's 10 in 500 square feet, that's a type 1. Maybe come up with some type of formula like that based on the number of moorings, and I don't know what the area may be, but something along those lines.
yeah,
Sounding
moorings and
like
docks.
sounding like
Yeah.
a selectman there, Matt.
Yeah, it's definitely possible to measure it, yeah, that's not a problem. Well, I say that after approaching somewhere, that's a problem in terms of time.
Yeah, I mean, I can do that, like, I wish I had been more, I can turn that map into GIS layers, it's just gonna take me a little while to do it, and then pull in other stuff. If you guys don't mind, like, we can email stuff around, I don't like doing too many things, like, not with the whole public-facing thing, but this is a lot of stuff to do.
We currently have this all type 1.
Yeah, that's-
And this type 1, to make sense. This is more type 1
Yeah.
here. This would be type 2. There's fishing piers, moorings, docks.
Yep.
Look at the map I brought up. It has all the moorings on it.
I mean, it shows the moorings, so we'd almost like, when you
Yeah.
see the cluster of moorings, you
Right.
just turn those blue.
Yeah. Yep, we can do that.
So, I mean, if we're worried about the deadline on the
Yeah.
timing
Oh,
for the vote, I
That's from
mean,
the town
Where
website.
there's
should we
clusters
try
of
to get
moorings.
together earlier? I mean, based on this new information of.
I mean, it kinda seems like we
Sorry, I
should.
sat in your lap.
No, I
Meetings.
It's a big phone.
It is, it literally is. You can pull the keyboard off, though, it's
You
easier.
can see all the moorings clustered
Yeah, that should be.
blue.
yeah, definitely should.
All right, if we want to make some decisions about like how we think the groupings should change, I can try and prepare a GIS version of that, and we can go through that like
That
in a
should
little
be
more detail
right.
at the next meeting and finalize it, if you guys are up for
Yeah.
that. Something basic like that makes sense. If it's got moorings, it's, you know, not type 1.
Yeah. If you get two more within 100 feet of one another, then that's probably more purpose. Type 2, I don't know.
So we want to base it on density.
Mooring density.
Yeah.
I can,
I think it makes sense.
I'll
I mean,
project
otherwise,
it and see what it ends up looking like. I'm sure like in the type 1 stuff, you might have one or two little, you know, their boat
Yeah.
moorings sitting there, but it's not gonna be like a mooring field, so.
What do they base that on densities, correct?
Not really, it's pretty vague, so
Yeah.
we can come up with whatever definition we want.
Yep.
All right, so we'll review what we've had and make some changes or recommend some changes based on mooring densities. And then if I get a little bit of time, I'm not on the farm yet, so I can go all in on this for the next few days and come up with, turn that into a GIS format so that we can easily turn colors on and off and designate sections and change lines if we needed to, all of that stuff. It's hard to do it here like this, for sure, looking at that, and I want us to give it the proper amount of time and effort, but I also don't want to miss the opportunity to get it in there, so how much extra work do we all want to do?
Well,
I'll get it ready, it's just that I can't do it right now, but I could do it in a few days, so if you guys wanted to try and meet in a week to go over,
we just may want to meet, not a week before it's due, but
yeah.
do a Zoom meet, or do you want to meet?
I think we need to meet, and you got to look at the map, and you got to be in the same room, and you
It's
got to.
kind of a physical thing.
Oh, God, I'd say, because we can share screens for Zoom. One, along with whoever's chairing it, can show the maps. We can talk it through if that's the case.
That is true.
You can't just start with a mooring map and highlight, certain densities.
And as
Within
long as
so
you
many
make it
foot of one
public.
another.
And
It can be recorded.
And I
Well,
can tell you the Harbor
Public can be
Waterfront,
invited.
Yeah.
the Harbor and Waterfront Committee is going to want to have input on this too, I imagine.
Yep. Are you guys allowed to do Zoom meetings for town stuff? I know some towns You're not supposed to. Mary Ann, do you know anything about that? Yeah, sorry.
What?
Wasn't that option adopted during COVID?
I'm not sure. Like, is the town allowed to do business with committees via Zoom, or does it all have to be, yeah, I thought there was a, yeah. Yeah. All right, well, let's just suck it up and say we need to come together again. Could we meet next week? I mean, what do you guys look like? I'd rather
Well,
do
really,
it.
it's a matter of like when you could have,
I can do it in the next couple of days.
Do
Give
we
me 2
wanna
days.
just-
I mean, I'm not so concerned about the blue, it's just the red
Yep.
around the neck. You know, that,
If I get it in GIS format too, we can blow up sections, I can zoom in, we can do like real-time changes of lines and come up with a change that we'd want. I know,
you
I'm
think you can put this on?
Dude, you did not think that we could do the commercial fishing in time, and you owe me a beer for that, so. This is easy. I already did the format. All that is like, I can't remember if it's 500 foot or 1,000 foot buffer zone around the outline of Harpswell. I already have the shell made. I just haven't drawn in all the sections of it, because I didn't want to jump ahead if that wasn't something you guys needed me to do. But I think it does need to get done, and let's just clean this up and have everything like all one nice package ready to go.
So we're gonna look at trying to get the GIS, then set a time to meet ahead of April 2nd.
Let's meet in a week. What do you guys have for other things going on? I'd rather do it on the earlier end than the
The
later end.
19th would be next week.
Paul, does this sound appropriate, or are you got blood pressure going up right now? Or?
Yeah, if you guys can meet more than once, I think that's a great idea.
So let's meet in a week.
Okay, so.
Same time, same place?
Yep, March 19th, and we'll have everything ready. And I'll try and get stuff, I might be able to email you guys some things ahead of time to take a look at, or it might just be easier to do it in person, but I'll have it all ready.
And I would suggest that anyone on the committee or the group should be looking at areas that they think should be type 1 or type 2.
Yep, yeah, do some real thinking.
It's all up to you to decide that. If you,
No, all I'm gonna do is.
Dave knows every inch.
Yeah, I'll create what we have right now and then make some recommended changes based on mooring densities, and then everything else beyond that, you guys weigh in,
And
so.
you could sit down with him for 10 minutes and we'll just,
Yeah.
you know, every inch of it.
Yeah, actually, you guys could, if you wanted to, get your own version of that, mark it up, and then just email it to me, and
Oh,
then
yeah,
I can bring it in.
Yeah.
That's kind of how the same way we did the big fishing maps. Same idea. So between now and, take the next couple days, within 2 days, if you want to make markup changes, like print a map, mark it up with stuff, send it to me, and I'll have the GIS stuff ready for a
I
week
do
from
know there's
today.
been a significant increase just in moorings from when this was first.
Yeah, this is 15 years old
Yeah.
now, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And maybe that made sense in 2011, but
Yeah.
it doesn't now.
yep. Yeah, post-COVID, people moving up here, all kinds of stuff, so.
Do you know how many moorings we had in 2011 as opposed to now, Paul?
Mute.
Mute.
I don't, I'd have to go back through, the records and take a look.
Come on.
That CES reports in 25.
I'm
I know
sure-
now, I'm just saying in 2011.
I think that reports
I mean, like, for instance, there's quite an area on there that people are gonna, they're gonna debate, but that's the reach. Like, that really is no longer type 1 water.
Yeah.
Hasn't been for quite some time. So that definitely needs to be edited, but they're not gonna like that at all.
Well, I think we need to look at that, you know, see how many moorings there, see how many docks are there,
Yep.
how many LPAs, lead leases, you know, fishing activities. We may need to look at some areas more intensely than,
Yep.
All right, so let's see, do you guys all agree are we allowed to just meet in a week? We don't have to do like a public notice or something, do we? If we're just a working
No, I'll
group?
be on calendar tomorrow, so we can be fine.
Okay.
Be fine.
I would assume same time, so we don't get confused unless we're conflicting with somebody. Are we conflicting
I
with
hope
you?
we get paid well.
We can probably go in a smaller room, we can do this room. Conservation Commission needs a
Ah, got you, okay.
We might not be an hour.
I think
Yeah.
we can cut it to not overlap. If that gives us a deadline, that'll make us very efficient. So let's say March 19th from 3:30 to not quite 4:30?
4:50.
All right, everyone come with your thoughts deeply ingrained and ready to hammer down and get to work on that then.
Cool.
Okay.
And also be thinking about definition for type 5 if we actually want
Yeah.
to add more to that.
Yeah, for now, the draft version is type 5 waters are legacy fishing waters. These areas are heavily used by one or more commercial fisheries, including lobster, scallop, pogie seiners, European oyster harvest, clam harvest, and rockweed harvest. And we can change that up any way you want, but I think the bigger issue is to just make sure everyone understands this is a major layer of the maps and they need to be checking it out. We could even note in there, like, these may overlap all other type waters, just, check the map. We can hammer that out at the next one. Do you guys all have copies? Did Paul put a copy of that in our packet, the old map?
Yeah, but
Not colored, but
That's okay. Are those like adequate for you guys to mark on them? David, can you work on that, or is that too tiny?
I'm probably gonna print off a mooring field map.
Okay.
Use that. What are you guys comfortable with, like mooring within 100 feet?
well, not one mooring. It would just be more.
No, like if there's two within a certain span of one another, would you consider that, say there's, along this shore, there's 4 of them so far apart from one another, would you consider that a type 1 or type 2? Because that's, I'm sure that.
I mean, I really think that type 1 is very specific.
Yeah,
Mud flat coves that drain out, really.
Yeah.
And then areas where there really isn't anything, maybe, which there isn't really much anymore.
Yeah.
There's more on the western shore than the eastern shore.
yeah,
There's the lot sizes on the western shore are way bigger than ones on the eastern shore on the
Yeah.
map.
yeah.
So there may be areas on the western shore that would go pink or red, whatever that color
Yeah,
is.
you guys can all like give me your different versions of everything and I'll just make them clickable to be on and off, and then we can edit them in real time and merge whatever we agree on.
Yeah,
But at least identifying the areas where there is, well, you saw on that.
Yeah.
There's like 50 moorings in this one shore.
Yep.
I mean,
yeah.
All right, we beat that horse to death for now until we meet again. Any more input, comments?
in the public.
Okay. So we have our next meeting, and from there we'll work on the deadline. I think we're gonna make it. You can buy me a beer again, Billy, if we make it.
They get expensive.
All right, so the next item is the carrying capacity study grant. And Mary Ann, you're actually mentioned on here if you would like to come talk, or Paul, or both of you. I don't know how you guys want to manage this one.
Can I sit up there?
I'll let Mary Ann talk, and I will slide you the slides for her.
There you go.
I realize if I hold this, I can't read.
There you go.
Well, thank you for bringing up high. Okay. All right. So I was glad to see, by the way, I'm Mary Ann Nathan, in case you don't know. And I'm on the Marine Resources Committee with David. And 2 years ago or so, David, was it, or 2.5 years ago, there was a concern about getting a baseline idea of the capacity, similar to what you're doing with the other fisheries, to get an idea of, to start with, have a base point to start keeping track of how the additional fishing is going to affect the natural habitat as far as nutrients. So we got in touch with FB Environmental to scope out a study similar to the one that was done on the Madonic, but different because there's a different situation here. On the Madonic, they had never had any shellfish to begin with, but that's not to say it's too late to start at some point. So,
Aquaculture, I think you mean. They'd never had
yeah,
aquaculture.
they had never had aquaculture.
They have lots of shellfish.
They had a study done, but it was based on the fact, and they have a different situation there as well. Based on that thinking, we contacted FB Environmental and talked about how would we cover all of Harpswell so that we could better direct new fisheries when they're trying to go for a license. And we chose Upper Middle Bay near Pennellville, Harpswell Sound near Schiller Coastal, and then also the New Meadows River up near the Gurnett, thinking you get 3 completely different environments with different water flow and everything else to get a good sense of a baseline. So the whole project was quite more expensive than we had funding for or could go for funding on this grant. So what we chose to do was to break it into 2 phases. In the first phase, and we figure the most important to start sooner rather than later, is to start taking the samples. And then, so that is what this project is for, and it's going to go out, well, you have a copy of it there, so you can read basically, I won't go into too much detail, but basically the idea, as soon as we can start this summer, there would be trips at various times of the season in all these areas, collect the samples, and get them to the lab in the 24-hour period or whatever it is, Darcy, that we need. That particular project would also not only take the samples, but also send them to the lab for analysis. Now that you have this information, we then can go to the modeling later, once we get the funding. So the particular project, we took it and broke it in half that way, would be for a year, and it would be starting taking samples this summer, and then carrying out into the fall as well. And I'm trying to find it here, I believe it's 4 samples, 4 times a year, it's written out here, 4 times a year. The second part would then do the modeling, which is just about, this is about 2/3 of the total cost. I think it was originally $54,000, Paul, was that it? For the complete study. So Max Johnstone of MCOG said that they could do the administration of this grant. So he pulled it together, and we applied to the Maine Outdoor Heritage Fund. We were invited to submit a full application, which was done the end of February, and I believe we're supposed to hear the end of May, if we get the funding.
Do you know if that funding is tied to any federal trickle down at the base source of it? That's tied up a lot of grant programs I'm currently reviewing.
This one went through.
Like, where does Maine Outdoor Heritage get their pot of money for?
It's part of the Man for Lane, that whole pot of Maine money.
Okay, so it's probably domestic. It's
Oh,
from
it is
within
domestic,
Maine. It's
yeah.
not coming from a federal agency.
Yeah.
That's encouraging.
And this particular grant, you basically, it is put through by, this particular one's going through DMR. So we submitted this to DMR. DMR then submits it to this larger fund.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't worked with Lands for Maine Future, so I'm not too sure of how the trickle down is.
Mm-hmm.
But it is local, and I believe that's funded through, isn't that funded basically through bonds that are put through?
Okay.
So ideally, the money should be there. So that's kind of what the project is. We wanted to get started on it, and I think it fits in really nicely with what you guys are doing, because you're trying to do the same thing with lobster and everything else. I actually would have liked, now that you're, well, it started out, we started this before the task force started. This was in process, and then now that you are a committee, and what is the name of the committee now?
It isn't established yet.
Yeah, we're still a working group.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was established.
We're just doing this for fun.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice to know.
No, it's a,
We're a working.
there's an intent, but it hasn't been decided. Is that?
Well, no, it was,
correct, Paul?
the selectmen,
No
no?
one told me that we were
thought we
anything
haven't.
else, yeah.
No? Well, I guess I heard wrong.
Yeah.
No work group,
Yeah.
yeah, there's no work group.
Okay.
That's why I'm allowed to be here. If they were a committee, I wouldn't be allowed to be here.
Well, I thought maybe you took over as the liaison.
That may be tomorrow night. I'll wait and find out tomorrow night.
He's going.
But anyhow, I wanted to let you guys know about it, because I think it's so much a part of the process of what you're doing. And I'd be glad to give you any more information that you would like. I can fill in which I may have forgotten, but we'll just keep our fingers crossed. In the meantime, oh, and I also want to mention that we felt that the town felt that this falls under resiliency, so the Spira Fund on the Resiliency Committee contributed $6,000 towards this project
Nice.
because Paul told me he had no money. And it was all tied up in other things.
Like whales and.
Yeah, whales and things like that. So anyhow, the Resiliency Committee felt that it was really a good opportunity to push and get something done for resiliency in this area.
Nice.
And we're going to continue to look for funding to finish the rest of this project.
I may have a solution to that. So I did some research into this too. I talked to the town of Waldoboro and to their planner because I was really curious to see how their project turned out.
Good.
And I know they're not quite done. I think they need another
I think
round of
it's like
sampling.
Yeah.
But they were really pleased so far with the relationships with FB Environmental, with working with Damian Brady. They were optimistic about what they were going to get out of it. So then I also called Damian Brady today because I know him from my previous networks and explained, like, we're trying to do the same thing here. And he said, oh, you guys are much better set up because apparently the Casco Bay Estuary Partnership is just wrapping up a compilation of some very detailed hydrography and circulation modeling in Casco Bay, which includes our area. And he said, you're already set up to be 10 times better than the information they're trying to use for the Medomic. So I'm like, good, can you help us with that? He's like, yeah, we can do what we can to help you pull that together. And they also have some instruments we may be able to borrow to do some additional sampling. So
Good.
I'm like, will that cost anything? He's like, well, we can talk about that. Probably I can loan you the gear and, you know, I can help you talk to the right people for modeling. So we may be able to pull off the second section of it for little to no cost,
that would be-
which would be great because this
Because
is
it's a lot of money.
it's a lot of money and we have access to some really great information to kind of finish this out. So we're in a wonderful position as far as that goes.
And I'm not a fisherman, but I thought that the FB Environmental proposal was pretty complete.
I haven't read this one, but I read the
Yeah.
one for the Medomic
And they covered a lot of what the literature review and what they're going to really model for.
Yeah, Waldoboro's comments were that they worked very well listening to the local concerns, which is sometimes a problem when you get
Yeah.
academic
Right.
projects going on. So that was encouraging to hear.
And Dana left, but I talked to Dana about this project, and they supported it as well.
Yeah, Sea Grant does not have money right now, but
I know he doesn't.
they're all in for the spirit of
But
it.
he was in for the spirit of it, which was fine.
Darcy, where were you saying the possibility of getting this support?
So Damien is at UMaine, and I've known him for years, back from when I was at the department. We got a good working relationship. I was happy he recognized me when I called. That's always a plus. And smiled. He didn't say something horrible to me. And he's kind of an integral part of doing the review and the oversight of the modeling work that FB Environmental is going to do for the Medomic. So he's kind of like the guy up here, and he's the one that told me that Casco Bay Estuary Partnership is just finishing up. They're in like the final stages of wrapping up a very complicated, very detailed hydrography model for our area, which does not exist in the Medomic. So ours is going to potentially be much more detailed, much more useful, much more accurate as far as the stuff that we're plugging into it. So that was really exciting to hear. And the fact that we may be able to use some connections and some partnerships to help get that done at not a massive cost. You obviously have to pay a private company because it's like me going out there doing the work. I would love to make that kind of money, but then it would just never happen. We don't have that money, so.
And actually, Paul and, Paul is handling the transportation to the sites. So that was one way we were able to keep the cost down a little bit.
Yep, I'm super excited about this project.
Yeah, yeah. So,
It's another project that's a really big deal. I was going to mention to you guys also, I guess I can put it under, I don't know, new business, that I was contacted by someone at the town of Deer Isle to Zoom into their Marine Resource Committee meeting earlier this week because they were really interested in the mapping that we had done and if that was how we did it, what we thought about it, if that was something that they could maybe look into as well. It's the same way. Everyone is looking to try and use local information to kind of solve their local problems instead of having one giant plan for everybody in the state. So they were excited about what we were doing. In fact, Waldeboro, when I was asking her the questions about the study and explaining that we're just getting finished with our mapping, she was really interested in that as well. So they may want to reach out and ask us more about that too. So we may have started a little trend here.
that would be great, because I think that's important. I don't know, I think we have the most diverse
We
fishing
absolutely
area
do. It's the most
in the
complicated.
state.
Yep.
So, what better place to, get
Yep.
started on it? So,
Yeah, and it shows that you can just get it done. Even a little town can just figure it out.
that's what's so great.
And Sam, you had somebody approach you about the mapping. I
Yep.
don't remember where from. And,
Trying to remember where it was.
and
But
at
yes,
the,
they did.
the Aquaculture Advisory Committee seemed very interested as well
Yep.
in what we're doing and making it formal as opposed to informal.
Great.
Darcy, what is the model that they did, the Casco Bay Estuary?
It's Casco Bay Estuary Partnership. They've collected a lot of data over years, including current studies, a lot of different very discrete sampling. They've got massive data sets anyway that they've been just piling on because they have a lot of resources and a lot of great projects that they do, and they're really good at kind of stitching together the whole network of information that they have. So this apparently was recently one of their goals was to create this hydrographic model, current model of Casco Bay that's very detailed. And I asked him, I'm like, well, is that going to include Harpswell, like way up inside? He's like, oh yeah, they have stuff.
But what
from
kind of
all
information is on that? Like
So
water
this
depth,
is the kind
water
of thing, it would be,
flows?
yeah, it would be the kind of data that if you were looking to design a model to estimate, flows of food or speed or uptake or any of that stuff, all of that information has been collected. They're going to end up estimating it for the Medomic because they just don't have that scale. They've taken a few discrete samples at different points in time, and they're just going to have to do the best they can with that. But we have an entire baseline of really solid data to kind of beef up the model with whatever else we're going to add into it. So it should be phenomenal. I have really high hopes for it. Did not expect that data layer already existed. That would be like $100,000 worth of data collection that we're just going to have access to.
Does that show constricted currents as well? things
I'm
like
not
that?
sure. I'll talk to them. I just found all this out a couple hours ago,
Yeah.
so I can find out what's the level of detail, and I have the contact people to check with and ask them about that. But
Thank you.
it's going to fit in exactly with the project that we've got going on here. So
It's similar information, I think I handed around, just showing you like concentrations of flows, currents, nutrients. I believe that's been a useful tool for some aquaculturists so far,
I would think so.
yep.
so.
Water qualities,
Didn't they have something floating in the New Meadows for taking temperature and everything?
Yeah, I think like Bowden's had a buoy out there for some stuff, and
Bowden did, but I thought Casco Bay Estuary Park
maybe,
did as well.
yep, they might have. That might have been one of their things too. And that they have the expensive stuff that you can sit out there and it collects in real time over long time series. So that's why it's going to be so good. It's going to be a very rich data set to pull together.
And we were in touch with Bowdoin College as well, and they had offered support in perhaps even hosting meetings when we have them, but
support.
not that.
Come on now.
That's the only one kind of support we need.
I know, but am I wrong in thinking nonprofits can't really give money?
I feel like Bowden does okay for themselves.
Yeah.
So I had a meeting with Holly Parker, the director over there yesterday, and we talked about this project a little bit more, and she did say that they are happy to share any data that they can provide us.
Good.
They have that logo up there in the sound.
Yep.
But they also have some sort of in-depth reader that can kind of read the critters at a microscopic level.
Do they have a flow cam out there? Like I'll have to, can you send me her? I want to talk to them.
Yeah, for sure. She went in depth on it, which was way over my head, but happy to provide that data anytime we want it.
Were they looking at mDNA research with any of this?
I don't think so. I don't think they included that in any of the stuff.
What kind of research?
mDNA, it's just you take a sample, it'll tell you everything that's crossed that area for every
Yeah.
stock species, but the only problem is it only works in 24-hour sequences. So you literally have
It's
to,
like a snapshot.
it's a snapshot in the window. They're using it with offshore wind development to try to, since we can't get vessels in there, we take samples to figure out what's transiting through at what time of the year.
Yep.
Gotcha.
That's what we need to do this study with.
Baby steps, David. We're doing an awful lot of science this year. We're getting there.
Yeah, I mean, that's expensive right now, but I mean, if we already had the restrictive currents, that's.
I do know a group. I did also in trying to find like support for us to do stuff. I talked to Quahog Bay Conservancy, and they have a postdoc guy. I want to say kid because I'm so old and he's like 20, but a postdoc guy working there, and he's doing some eDNA stuff. So we might possibly be able to start toying with that or playing around with some stuff, but I don't have a formal relationship yet. So we will see. We've got lots of options. We got a lot of work to do this year, and
So how does what Mary Ann talked about and what the resources you're finding, how
Yep.
do they tie
so
together?
basically Mary Ann's, this study is collecting the front end of like you need a lot of discrete data from like your actual site, and then use some of that data to collect more data and turn it into a model. And basically the modeling and the auxiliary other types of data collection is already done. So we don't have to pay $50,000 to have that done. It's already finished. Just by happenstance because we live in Casco Bay where they've done all their work.
Yeah.
So we can kind of pony right onto that.
And so they're not in conflict, they're in.
No, they're complementary. Yep.
And where's Casco Bay Estuaries funding from?
They get a ton of, they're in Portland. They're not federal.
Okay.
They may get some federal, but I think they're pretty stable. They have a lovely office in Portland and they're near GMRI and
Good.
and this is not going to actually cost them anything. So I think they'll at least be around long enough to share this information with us.
Which reminds me, do you have a sense of time frame?
Damien mentioned they are literally in the last stages of wrapping up their giant, package of work, which to me means weeks to months. So it may be finished just in the right time to then start looking at whatever data we get generated from FB Environmental and roll right into it. But in the meantime, I'll start chatting them up about, hey, you want to do a favor for a little Harpswell up here? Because
Yep, I hear Billy buys beer.
is the dolphin open yet?
all on
That's true.
Yeah. All right. Any more stuff on carrying capacity? Any more carrying capacity stuff? Got that one covered. How about any other new business? Seeing none. Any more public comment? Wow, we are headed to the finish line here. All right, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
There we go.